Windsor Castle, a fortress, a palace, a symbol of enduring monarchy. But beneath the stones, a secret slumbered for over a century, waiting to rewrite history. What they found down there wasn't just old bricks and mortar. It was a hidden life, a royal scandal, and a heartbreaking story of a boy who never was. It started, as these things often do, with a renovation, a seemingly innocuous project to shore up some of the castle's aging infrastructure. A team of workmen, led by a man named Thomas, descended into the silent tunnels beneath Windsor. These weren't the grand staterooms or even the servants' quarters. These were forgotten passages, sealed off after the war, their existence relegated to dusty archives and whispered rumors. The air down there was thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and undisturbed time. Thomas, a man who'd spent his life working with stone, felt a prickling unease. His lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Then he felt a draft. A whisper of cool air in a place where no air should move. He pressed his hand against the wall and the stone felt different, newer, somehow. This wasn't just a structural anomaly. This was a secret. He called his team, and together they began to dismantle the wall, stone by painstaking stone. Hours later, they stood before it, a door. Not a modern fire door or a service entrance, but something ancient. The wood was black with age, intricately carved with symbols that both intrigued and disturbed. Royal crests, yes, familiar and proud. But intertwined with them were strange, unsettling patterns. Circles within circles, lines that writhed like serpents, symbols belonging to no known language. Thomas, a practical man, knew this was beyond his pay grade. He called it in. Within hours, the hushed corridors of Windsor were buzzing with activity. Palace officials, their faces etched with concern, arrived with clipboards and cameras. Whispers echoed through the tunnels, whispers that reached the ears of King Charles himself. The king, a man steeped in history, understood the gravity of the situation. An unknown door beneath his castle, a secret deliberately buried. This wasn't just a historical curiosity, it was a potential Pandora's box. He ordered the area secured, the discovery kept under wraps. The world outside the palace walls couldn't know yet. But the king couldn't ignore it. The weight of history, the burden of the crown demanded answers. He had to see it for himself. He had to know what secrets lay hidden behind that ancient door. He descended into the tunnels, Prince William by his side. The atmosphere was oppressive, the silence deafening. A historian, her face pale with worry, waited for them. She'd been poring over the royal archives, searching for any mention of this hidden passage, this secret chamber. Nothing. It was as if it had been deliberately erased from history. The king exchanged a worried glance with William. A secret room meant secrets worth hiding, the kind that families buried deep in prey never see the light of day. William stepped towards the door, the darkness beyond seeming to swallow the light. Centuries of silence were about to be broken. The king nodded, and together they stepped into the unknown. The chamber was a time capsule. Dust lay thick on everything, undisturbed for what felt like generations. Furniture huddled in the gloom, tables and chairs carved from dark wood, their surfaces dulled by the relentless march of time. Sealed boxes lined the walls, stacked with a deliberate care that spoke of a planned return, a return that never happened. But it was the paintings that seized their attention, dozens of them leaning against the walls, shrouded in cloth that had faded to the color of ash. William, drawn by an invisible thread, reached for the nearest one. The fabric crumbled in his fingers, revealing a face. A young boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. He was dressed in royal finery, rich fabrics, and gold trim, proclaiming his noble status. But it was his eyes that held William captive. They stared out from the canvas, an unsettling mix of pride and profound sadness. The historian, usually a bastion of calm, gasped. She knew every royal portrait, every face in the family tree stretching back centuries. This boy, he was a ghost, a missing branch, a complete and utter anomaly. William examined the frame, turning it over carefully. A small scrap of paper was affixed to the back, yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was old, formal, precise. He read aloud, his voice hushed in the echoing chamber. Heir of 2 worlds, protected by silence. The words hung in the air, a riddle wrapped in an enigma. King Charles, his face grim, moved to another painting, then another. Each unveiling revealed another stranger, another face, lost to time. A young woman with kind eyes, an older man with a stern countenance, a family group posed with the solemnity of a bygone era. All of them wore the trappings of royalty, the clothes, the jewels, the bearing, yet history had swallowed them whole. They were phantoms in their own castle. The historian, her hands trembling, began to examine the sealed boxes. Inside one, she found letters tied with faded ribbon. Another held official-looking documents adorned with royal seals. A third contained jewelry that gleamed even beneath the dust. Everything screamed importance, status, power. But it was all a secret, a carefully guarded lie. William stood transfixed before the painting of the boy, unable to tear his gaze away. There was something about those eyes, a knowingness, an understanding that belied his youth. It was as if he knew his fate, knew he would be erased. He turned to his father, his voice laced with confusion and a growing sense of dread. What does this mean? King Charles moved through the chamber slowly, his mind racing. A secret branch of the family? Illegitimate children? Threats to the succession hidden away to prevent conflict? But the phrase protected by silence suggested something different. These people hadn't been destroyed. They had been preserved. Someone had cared enough to build this chamber, to safeguard these belongings, to keep their memory alive even in the shadows. The historian unearthed a larger document, a family tree drawn by hand with meticulous detail. It showed connections, dates, marriages, children. It connected to the main royal line at several points, branching off and returning like threads in a complex tapestry. But none of these names appeared in any official record. It was as if someone had surgically removed them from history, while simultaneously preserving this secret record. King Charles finally stopped before the painting of the boy. He stared at it for a long, silent moment, his face paling in the lamplight. The resemblance struck him with the force of a physical blow. The shape of the face, the set of the eyes. He had seen those features before, in mirrors, in photographs, in the faces of his own family. His whisper barely disturbed the dust-filled air. This shouldn't exist. The implications were staggering. If this boy shared royal blood, if these hidden people were connected to the crown, then everything they thought they knew about the family history was a lie. Gaps existed where there should be none. Silences screamed where voices should have been. William stood beside his father, both men staring at the portrait. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Who made the decision to hide these people? When did it happen? And most importantly, why? The library doors snicked shut, sealing William, Kate, and two trusted historians inside. The portrait of the unknown boy, Edward, sat on the polished table, his painted eyes still holding that unsettling blend of pride and sorrow. The historians, bleary-eyed from sleepless nights, laid out their findings. The painting, they said, dated back to the late 1800s, the Victorian era. An era of corsets and propriety, but also of secrets meticulously kept. Yet, the trail vanished there. No birth record, no christening, no mention in any surviving letter or diary. It was as if Edward had been scrubbed from existence. Kate, her gaze fixed on the boy's face, felt a pang of sympathy. Someone had loved this child enough to commission a portrait, to dress him in royal clothes, to preserve his memory. But that same love had demanded his erasure. William paced, his mind grappling with the implications. The Victorian era. Queen Victoria's children marrying into European royalty. Scandals buried. Inconvenient truths erased. But erasing a child? That felt like a new level of ruthlessness. The second historian cleared her throat, gesturing to a small wooden box. Inside, bundles of letters tied with faded blue ribbon. She'd spent hours deciphering them, and they told a story of forbidden love and impossible choices. Kate untied the first bundle, her fingers careful. The handwriting, elegant and flowing, filled the pages. Each letter signed only with the initial E. She began to read aloud, her voice soft. The writer spoke of a child with bright eyes, a curious mind, a love for stories and music. A child deeply loved, fiercely protected, but laced between the lines of affection was fear. Fear of discovery, fear of scandal, fear of consequences that would harm not only themselves but others. One letter mentioned duty to the crown. Another, a love that society would never accept. A third, the agonizing choice between personal happiness and familial obligation. William stopped pacing, leaning against the desk. Each letter revealed more, yet explained less. Who was E? Mother? Father? Guardian? And who was this child they wrote about with such desperate tenderness? Kate reached the middle of the bundle. Here, the tone shifted. The writer described making arrangements, finding a safe haven, ensuring the child's protection. They spoke of building the hidden chamber, of sealing away belongings and portraits, preserving them while ensuring they remained undiscovered. The phrase "for the sake of love and duty" appeared again and again. The historians confirm that similar phrases echoed throughout the other letters. Someone had faced an impossible choice, opting to bury the truth to protect everyone involved. That weekend, Prince George arrived, eager to explore the castle and hear tales of kings and queens. But he sensed something was amiss. Whispered conversations, hushed tones, papers vanishing into drawers. The air thrummed with secrets. George, perceptive beyond his years, recognized the signs of adult worry. He'd learned to read his father's distracted gaze, his mother's too bright smiles. On Sunday afternoon, he found them in the sitting room, hunched over the old letters. He overheard fragments: hidden, Victorian era, no records. His mother mentioned a painting. His father spoke of duty and impossible choices. George cleared his throat. William and Kate jumped. He asked what they were looking at, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. They exchanged glances. How much to tell him? He was young but intelligent, perceptive. Lying would only fuel his curiosity. Kate gestured for him to sit. She explained carefully that they'd found something old beneath the castle. Letters and paintings, a mystery about people forgotten by history. George leaned forward, fascinated. Was it like a treasure hunt? William smiled, a shadow of worry in his eyes. In a way, yes. But this treasure raises questions about our family, about the past, about secrets buried for over a century. George studied the letters, struggling with the archaic handwriting. Why would someone hide letters and paintings? Kate's throat tightened. Sometimes people make difficult choices to protect the ones they love. Sometimes keeping secrets feels like the only way to keep everyone safe. George considered this, his expression serious. Do the secrets stop being necessary when everyone from that time has passed away? The question hung in the air, simple yet profound. William found himself speechless. That evening, after George was asleep, William returned to the library. One letter remained unread, thicker than the others, sealed with cracked wax. He broke the seal carefully, unfolding the paper. The handwriting was the same, but the tone was different, final, deliberate. The writer addressed the letter to someone in the future, not by name, but by title, the rightful heir, someone from their bloodline who would one day find the hidden chamber and uncover the buried truth. William read, his heart pounding. The writer explained they had no choice but to hide what they treasured most. Society's rules, the demands of the crown, the weight of duty, all made it impossible to acknowledge the truth publicly. But they couldn't destroy it either. Love forbade such erasure. So they built the chamber, preserved the evidence, left clues for someone wise enough to find them and brave enough to seek the truth. The letter was signed Edward the Unnamed.